Welcome to the Scalable Real Estate Investing Podcast, where we discuss the most scalable strategies, tools, and approaches to successfully invest in real estate. Learn how to make the most impact of your time, automate your real estate investing business, find off-market deals with minimum time invested, and leverage your capital to create as many income streams as possible so that you can achieve true financial independence. Thank you for tuning in. I'm your host, Mason Clement. Hi, Scalable Investors. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Scalable Real Estate Investing. I'm your host, Mason Clement, and today we have Alex Jarbo, who is founder and CEO of Sargon Investments, which is a major powerhouse in short-term rentals, Airbnb, but it's not just a typical Airbnb property. He likes to focus on more unique things that provide the guest with a great experience. I don't want to talk about him too much, just let him roll with it. So, Alex, what's going on today?
What's up, Mason? How are you?
Doing great. So how about we just jump into things? I like to talk about folks' background and like what brought you into Airbnb and today.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So I when I was like 18, I joined the Marine Corps, spent about 5 years in the Marine Corps, mainly out of the DC area I was stationed at. And it sort of got to a time where I was like, I want to sort of like branch off and do my own thing. At the time I joined like a flipping mentorship, and I found out that one of the main coaches who would run the program, their initial business was flipping, but this was back in 2000, I want to say 15. They were focused in short-term rentals as like building long-term wealth and stuff, and my mindset immediately switched to that. It's like I practically like abandoned the flipping side. And I was like, I just want to focus on short-term rentals. So he had helped me sort of figure out where I'm originally from Detroit, Michigan, and I didn't want to go back there to work on the short-term rentals. So he had helped me. We looked at a couple markets at the time, and we had decided where I live now here in Asheville, North Carolina. But I moved here, got my real estate license, started helping people purchase and sell. Didn't really enjoy that too much. So I started looking into purchasing my own deal, or purchasing my own investment. And then I was trying to look for something that would allow me to use a VA loan, like maybe like house hack a property with a VA loan. Like you can purchase a 2, 3, 4 unit with a VA loan, live in one of them and rent out the others. That was essentially what I was looking to do, but I couldn't find anything either in my price range, or it was just the competition was absolutely crazy on it as well. So we kept looking and we just couldn't find anything. So I was like, screw it. I'll just build one. Like A-frames were starting to become again, really like they were starting to become popular again. So I found a GC. We put together like a very simple, like 900 square foot floor plan for an A-frame that could sleep 6 people. And that was my first deal, was that A-frame. And then 1 turned into 2 turned into 4. And right now we're developing or purchasing about like 16 as of yesterday. So 16 there, and then we're planning some other bigger projects for next year as well.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I forgot to mention in the intro that you have your own YouTube channel. I can put the link in the notes to that, but it's called Alex Builds. And
yeah, no, thanks for that. I started that YouTube channel just to help people with the short-term rental development side, because I mean, in development, man, it's just like mistakes mean money and it adds up very quickly.
Yeah, definitely. But I just know on there, I mentioned it because you said you've been doing this about 4 years now.
Yeah, 4 or 5 years.
Okay, perfect. So I know that you mentioned like bringing on investors, and how is that transition going? Just doing it yourself to eventually partner with investors?
Yeah. So, I mean, it reached a point where I just couldn't guarantee any more loans based off my balance sheet. And then on top of that, like it made more sense to bring on capital. I had friends that had some money saved up that were sort of coming up to me wanting to do deals and stuff. So that's where I started. I started with friends and family initially, or just friends, and did some we're doing some really cool deals with those. But then I took on a one-on-one mentor that specifically dealt in he started in short-term rental development, but more like hospitality development. And he sort of helped me switch my mindset to and also help me sort of put the systems in place to allow me to raise money properly, and then also allocate that money to specific deals And then everything we do, like we're working on syndication stuff for some of the bigger deals next year. I keep saying next year, but it's probably going to happen this year. But some of the larger deals we're going to syndicate, but some of the smaller stuff, and I say smaller, but like 4 to 6 cabins, 4 to 8 cabins. We just do joint venture deals with, say, like one investor. Like I'm talking to an investor tomorrow that, and we talk to investors all the time. They're looking to do like 1031 exchanges directly into one of our projects, which is a really good segue for some of the smaller deals. But yeah, that's it. Just started out of a necessity of wanting to do more projects, and I was just limited in my balance sheet and then also the money I had at the time.
Okay. So what's the usual equity split? Is it just a 50-50 on the JV?
Yeah, so the JV is 50-50. And then we take a very minimal 3% management fee that goes directly to, I don't take any of that 3%. That goes directly into the just hiring someone to help, like with the messaging and everything. And then depending if we do a development or an acquisition, it's either it's the same thing. It's a 1% acquisition or a 1% development fee. Across the board, it doesn't matter how big the project gets. Usually for the smaller projects, people are taking anywhere between 2 to 3% on the development and acquisition fee. So it's a true 50-50. And again, like we can play around with those numbers depending on like what's actually being brought to the table. Like I was talking to a syndicator the other day that was like potentially like going to raise the money, and then they essentially make the money up, like offer maybe a 10 to 12% pref to their investors, and then they sort of keep the difference. So every deal is going to be a little bit different.
Okay. That makes sense. Yeah, I'm familiar with like a typical multifamily syndication split, but I know that it could definitely change if you're just doing smaller scale stuff with friends or other
Absolutely
associate investors.
Yeah, I mean, that's when I first started, when I wanted to start raising money, there wasn't any information about how to do syndications for short-term rentals. So I leaned very heavily on, I mean, now there's stuff on self-storage written by Paul Moore and stuff, but like at the time it was just looking at like either syndication books, but multifamily books to learn how to do the syndication stuff.
Yeah. I mean, it obviously requires a lot more legal documents and a whole different, longer process anyway. So would you say it's probably easier just to work with your friends just to build that track record and experience working with other investors?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in the beginning, I say friends and family, but honestly, it's easier to work with friends than family, especially if you're really close to your friends. But yeah, it's really good to build that. What I've realized too is like with the friends thing is like you're gonna make mistakes when you first start. They have a mentor, don't have a mentor, no matter how much research you do, how much prep you do, you're gonna make mistakes. Things are gonna come up that you didn't plan for. Real estate development, thousands of things can go wrong. So it's nice to learn those mistakes when you're working with, say, like friends, because they might be a little bit more forgiving compared to someone who you maybe know, like maybe an investor that you've talked to for like a month or two. But I mean, I'm beyond that at this point. But when I first started, yeah, it was easier to work with friends and family compared to just people I'd talked to, like maybe do Zoom calls with, just because like obviously you make mistakes when you first start. So
yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So when you're doing say like a 4 to 6 cabin build out, how long do you expect it to take for just like one cabin, or is it based on actually the project and it's not even a per cabin time frame?
yeah, I mean, we're doing 6 right now, and I tried not to do multi-phase for something that small. So like we're pouring all the foundations at the same time, and it's like framing is probably going to be something where we're doing like one cabin at a time. But yeah, it takes about 2 to 3 months to actually close on the property, and probably another month to find the property. Just because it might be a little bit faster now because things are starting to pick back up. But like when I was purchasing land last year, I mean, just to get someone on site, it took a couple months, and then maybe another month or so to sort of, I'd say a month to get them on site, and another month to sort of work through, like if we're doing like perk testing, septic stuff, or even someone from the county for permits and everything. It took about 3 to 4 months. And that's probably how long it takes to close the land. So last year was probably like from end to finish about anywhere between 12 to 16 months. Now it's closer. We're sort of aiming to the 8 to 12 month mark. but it still makes more sense than trying to compete with these projects that are on the market right now in terms of, I mean, you have people who are coming from multifamily or different types of investment classes that are seeing how lucrative the short-term rental returns are. And they're saying, hey, as long as I get a 10% cap, I'm happy. And that's just causing the prices to just skyrocket for the short-term rental stuff. And then with my market, and I mean, I'm sure people are dealing with this in other markets too, is you're also competing with people who want to live in the properties as well. So they don't care what the property can make as a short-term rental because they want to live in it. So that's why it just makes it, even with all the supply chain issues and even with how expensive it's gotten to build, it still does make more sense to build because you do. Also, another thing is you have complete control of what the property is going to look like. You can design it as a short-term rental in terms of the uniqueness of it. Log cabins, A-frames, modern contemporary houses in the mountains are doing really well right now as well.
Okay. And essentially you're getting an architect's plans, and then you're just sending that to the builder and saying, just build this in your factory.
Yeah, so it's either or. So we had talked about the modular houses I'm doing. Those were the first two. So I did two log cabins that were built as modulars that are being delivered. The other all of our other projects are custom built, stick built houses, like built on site. And so there's different ways you can purchase the architectural plans, say like online. You probably still have to get them stamped with like a local architect or a local engineer in your city or state. And then recently I started working with someone on Fiverr, like an architect from like India that understands like international building code and blah blah blah. And they'll get me about maybe 75 to 80% there. And then I'll take that plan and give it to an architect. And yeah, then that goes directly to my GC. But there's different ways to do it. I mean, there's the purchasing them outright, like where they're already practically made, or you can design your own, and that's going to be a little bit more expensive.
So some of these modular home manufacturers have just off the shelf designs. You're just
Absolutely.
gonna flip through the book.
Yeah, and you can play with them. Like I had mentioned Blue Ridge Log Cabins, which I've actually never mentioned on a podcast before, but they have a model center where you can walk through the different. They have like maybe four floor plans that are already built out. And I just went in there and just purchased two of their floor plans. I didn't change anything about them. I mean, they had someone they were telling me they had someone in there that like a market about an hour away from me that had like walked in there and just purchased 20 cabins that they were going to put on, say like I think it was like 12 or 15 acres, and they were going to be all short-term rentals. So that makes more sense. I'll tell you the price per square foot for that is about 240 right now, at least in my market, to build site prep, everything, not including the land, purchase of the land, which is crazy to think about because like prior to COVID, it was around like 180 to 200 to build. And just modulars are at 240. But I mean, log cabins are wood. Wood's expensive right now. So
Okay. But you have mentioned that it's been a good way to hedge that skyrocketing price of lumber by going the modular home route. Do you still agree that's the case?
yeah, that it is. It's just like I don't want, for me personally, I didn't want like say 50 log cabins in my portfolio. I wanted a nice mix, especially with like guests. Like if a guest stays at one of my A-frames, I can remarket to them, hey, we got these log cabins. We have these different types of properties as well, compared to just boxing myself into just log cabins. But yeah, what appealed to me was the simple fact of how easy it was to build them. I mean, once we got through the loan process and we got through the permit process, which we were going through the permit process before the loan, we even closed on the loan, because we purchased the land cash, and the site prep and building can happen at the same time. So like it takes them anywhere between 5 to 6 weeks to build them off site, and then they deliver them directly. And then during 5 to 6 weeks, you're just working on the site prep, which is cutting down trees, putting in the foundations. And then after they put on, you just build decks around the properties and then put your HVAC system in and hook up your utilities, and you're good to go.
Okay. I know that you're focusing on more rural areas, and so would you say like 90% or more of the time you're having to drill a well and install a septic?
Yeah, I would say almost every single time. There are properties we're purchasing right now that we're working on getting under contract for that were already built. They're being built right now, but they'll be done in a couple months. But they were meant to be short-term rentals, but the budgets were done with the investors. There's like four investors. The budgets were done prior to COVID, so they just want to exit those properties, which is a great I guess great opportunity for me or people who are looking to do stuff like this. Is you'll see projects that are just sitting around right now in your market that you're just driving past, like, man, they haven't done anything to that in the last like year and a half. I mean, that's what my agent did. My agent reached out to a project that had been essentially sitting there for 2 years, or at least it was taking like 2 years to build it. And I mean, it just ended up working out. But yeah, I would say most of our projects are well and septic. Going rural was just out of necessity because you're not allowed to do short-term rentals in the city of Asheville. So we do about 15 to 20 minutes away, which doesn't hurt us because in the mountains, people are used to driving, like driving into mountain markets because the airports aren't that big. And so, but that strategy helped us even more during COVID because people left the metro cities during COVID and they went into more rural areas. And I mean, we just raised our rates for 2022 about like 20 to 30%. And I mean, we're still getting bookings. So I don't see that going away after international travel picks up a little bit, maybe a little bit, but it's not going to drop below what it was pre-COVID.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I know there's been a lot of pent up demand over the past year, just people wanting to get out, and they have cabin fever. So ironically, they go book a
Cabin fever, so
cabin.
they're going into cabins. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean, if you look at the numbers, the national park numbers, man, I mean, they every single park saw record numbers during COVID the last 2 years. So, I mean, and more people made the transition from hotels to short-term rentals as well in terms of like discovering short-term rentals or staying for the first time. I'd say maybe 30 to 40% of my guests don't have any reviews, which I mean that's a whole different topic about like should you take guests that don't have reviews. But I mean a lot of the requests I get are from people who have zero reviews, which means they just are using Airbnb for the first time or using VRBO for the first time. So, I mean, that happened during COVID as well as a lot of people made a transition from hotels to short-term rentals.
Yeah, that's what I really like about it too. It's this unique experiential marketing, and that's like what obviously things have been going toward for the past like 5 years or more, and it's just going to get stronger and stronger. I think as people really realize they want to make the most of their life and not just have
Right.
the same
And
old thing.
the best way I've ever heard of it, the way it was put is so like our properties sleep anywhere between 6 to 12 people. And would you rather have a hotel room that can sleep, or would you say if you have a two couples, so 4 people, say 3 couples, 6 people, and would you rather have 3 hotel rooms if you're traveling with this couple? Would you rather have 3 hotel rooms that you're probably gonna have to pay what $150 per hotel room, $200 per hotel room? Um, or would you rather have a house, a beautiful house, probably brand new that we just built, that could sleep those 6 people with 3 bedrooms? That is probably going to be a little bit cheaper. It's probably going to be like $400 a night or $450 a night compared to spending $600 a night with 3 separate hotel rooms. You're going to choose the house all day. You're going to have the privacy. You're probably going to have a hot tub. And then I don't ever see that going the other way around, unless if it's like a resort or something where it's like people are having to choose between a resort or my cabins. So, but I mean, yeah, I mean, if you're building these properties, especially if they're brand new, they have some sort of uniqueness to them, whether it be modern, contemporary, A-frames, log cabins. They're going to choose that all day over a hotel room.
Yeah, definitely. It really intrigues me and captures my imagination to think of building a tree house or something. It's like fulfilling a childhood dream. And
Yeah,
it's like,
man. We actually, it's funny they say that tree houses is something we actually have planned for next year. Because I mean, we found not, I'm not gonna say found out a way. We essentially took the model of what you do. Like we built a house on stilts, and the reason we did that is because we can get financing on that. So like take like the houses that are exist on the coast where all the houses are on stilts to prevent flooding. You take that house, put it in the mountains, and call it a tree house. And that's what you see a lot. You see a lot of tree houses being marketed as tree houses that are just houses on stilts. So that's an interesting, because you can get a certificate of occupancy, you can get financing for that, like in terms of normal financing. You can sell a treehouse on stilts as a normal house, like that someone can get an FHA or a VA loan or a conventional loan on something like that. So
Got it. Yeah. Yeah. I like how you made a really good point in one of your YouTube videos too about how um, building a little more permanent thing versus like a tiny home that's considered an RV. You're actually able to more easily sell that property. You don't have to sell the entire business, and then you're just selling cash flow anyways, just that one part of the property. But I mean, if this whole thing takes hold, you could, I guess, in theory, as an exit opportunity, sell to a hotel operator that realizes that they need to acquire your entire short-term rental portfolio.
that's the next step, man, is I see that happening in the next 5 years. Is the Marriotts, the Wyndhams are going to start getting into this space, and I think they're going to start by acquiring compared to developing. And I see that prediction from a couple other people as well who have said that, is they're building out these like boutique resorts or boutique hotels, or putting together very interesting portfolios of properties that I believe that these hotel companies, I mean, Marriott's already done it. Like Marriott has a short-term, like a luxury short-term rental site that they already built out a couple of years ago, or launched, I think, last year. But yeah, no, I think the permanent structures is a more built, there's a built-in exit there, or there's multiple built-in exits with the permanent structures.
Yeah, definitely. But I've also been learning about just being in land flipping. I've been learning about subdivisions and the entitlement process. So I know you mentioned you have a certificate of occupancy, but just to get that CO, do you have to first take it through that entire entitlement process, or what's that look like?
The
With
CO is just when the house is fully built.
okay,
But for land entitlement, man, one thing that I recently, and this is another thing where there's a built-in exit in different phases, whether it be, so like anything over 3 units in my market, you need to get something called a short-term rental complex permit. On the land flipping side, I was planning on doing a video about, like, a full video training on this, but you can go out, find a property, subdivide it, put the team together in place, whether it be the management team for the short-term rental, the development team for actually building it, get the short-term rental complex permit, which I already did, and then turn around and sell that to a developer or an investor, and probably double or triple your money because the work's already done there. I mean, we almost purchased a property in Gatlinburg that had been done to, where it was just 4 acres of land, but the subdivision had already been recorded or approved. The permit had already been approved, and the team was already in place. And I'm sure they probably were offering that land for quadruple, just because the time and the work had been put into it. So that's a built-in exit. If for some reason we can't develop, we can turn around and sell one of those projects for like double or triple, because the work's already been done.
yeah, I mean, it provides so much certainty too. I guess the only thing is, if there's too many deviations from that approved entitlement, then they have to go through the whole process again. So my biggest fear, and maybe it's irrational, but is like, well, how do I know what the buyer wants? And obviously the best thing to do is to go find that buyer first, and then back into everything based on what they tell you. But if you don't have the buyer, and you're like me, you just like to get started and just hit the ground running, then you don't really know, maybe you're feeling around in the dark.
Just
But
let them know. I mean, let them know in the listing description. Like, if you list that property with an agent, or if you're talking to investors, and be like, hey, if you do change any of these floor plans, like, you're probably going to have to go through the process again. Just let them know up front. I mean, if I think of it as, and again, every person's different, but if I was coming to someone who was bringing me a deal like that, and they told me that, I'd be like, okay, like, it wouldn't dissuade me from, I mean, it wouldn't force me away from the deal, is what I'm trying to say, is like, as long as someone told me that. I mean, now if the like the properties look like crap or something, yeah, but I mean, at the same time, you could also walk them through that process of changing out a couple things as well. But I mean, with how crazy the market is right now, especially if you're in a hot short-term rental market, I'm sure you could find a buyer for something like that all day.
yeah, that makes sense. I mean, as long as they're aware of the parameters and they operate within that and understand where they can
Yeah, and
deviate.
as long as you have the team put together too, with like the builder and the manager, like, that's not going to change unless if they want to change it.
Yeah, that's another thing I've been wondering, is what's the best way to go about finding a cleaning company that can reset the unit after each tenant?
Yeah, so you want to find if you're in a short-term rental market, like you were talking about, like getting into the Cherokee-ish market, would I consider that a short-term rental market where it's like you're going to have cleaning companies out there. If you're finding it difficult, I mean, there are apps out there like Turnover B&B and stuff that allow you to find short-term rental cleaners specifically, but you want to find a company that you can grow with, especially if you're doing, like you said, you're in Dallas, but you're investing in the mountains here. I mean, you're investing like away from the market that you live in. You want to be able. I wouldn't just recommend purchasing one property in a market. You want to be able to sort of like purchase different properties at the same time, or at least develop properties over the course of like 2 or 3 years. So with that being said, with the cleaning company, you want to be able to find a cleaning company you can grow with. And then also like you don't want to be working specifically with one person, because say if they get sick, say if something happens in their life, then you're sort of screwed. You're screwed. Like you can have a backup, but who's to say that that backup's going to be there when you actually need them? So finding a cleaning company that you can grow with is very important. And then on top of that, the way you find them is just, I mean, just Googling them, short-term rental cleaners. You could, if that doesn't work, or calling them, just ask for recommendations, because they're going to know the other cleaners in the area. And then if that doesn't work, you can reach out to the managers in that area as well, like the short-term rental managers, and essentially pick their brain a little bit, but also ask them. Like that's how I found how to use my short-term rental agent right now, is just asking around, short-term rental managers, who do you guys use? And that's for everything. Is it you contact the top short-term rental managers and you're like, hey, if I purchase a project, I'm probably going to put it with you guys. Who do you recommend as a cleaner? They might already have one that they use, or they might already have one that like they might already manage the cleaning in-house, is what I'm trying to say.
Okay, that's actually my next question is, if you have that cleaning company, do you need a property manager as well? Like what's the extra value they're adding?
Nothing. You could get away with almost there's some really good videos out there that I haven't done, that like Rob Built have done, talked about how you can essentially manage a property without using a manager. um, there's so much technology out there with like automated messaging and everything that very minimal cost. I'm talking about like this technology costs like maybe like $20 a month to implement in your properties. I would, if you can find a good cleaning crew without a manager, that is where the rubber meets the road. If anything is wrong with the property, they're usually the one who's going out there. You can probably put something together, or negotiate something with the cleaning company. Be like, hey, if you have to go out there, like say after hours for an emergency, I'll pay you an extra 150, whatever. And another step to that is also, I guess, finding a part-time maintenance person. If your property does have like ongoing maintenance that has to be done to it that your cleaning crew can't handle. And between your cleaning company and a maintenance person, you don't really need honestly, you don't really need a manager.
Okay, but you said short-term rental managers. Do you mean just like someone like you that's just like an investor, or is it actually a third party
No,
that's
these are third party that take about 20 to 30%, or say 18 to 30%. That literally it's turnkey. Like you're not doing anything. You are giving them the property and you're telling them, I don't want to hear anything about this property. They already have the systems in place. They already have the people in place. That's sort of the value we add to our investors, is we take over the management. So, I mean, that's why I say I take a 3% management fee, but that's just to help with the messaging side. But yeah, it's 50-50. And then, but like if they were to put it with a normal manager, again, they're paying 18 to 30%, probably closer to 25% for a really good manager is what I see in my market. So that's the value we bring to our investors as well.
okay. I know for my property manager, I pay him 10% of the monthly rents on these 12-month leases for just typical single family house. So you're just saying, it's probably obvious, but it's 25% of each booking they're taking their cut.
Yeah, the gross. Yeah.
Okay.
Which is honestly comes out to be a lot, because it's 25% before you pay bills. So, but that's normal. I mean, that's how it is across long-term rentals as well.
Got it. Yeah, that makes sense. Just get some intel from them and then start applying that in your own business. You don't have to necessarily hire them, but
Yeah.
they're probably more
And
willing to talk to
you're
you.
not it's not really crummy, or you're not really screwing them over. You're not wasting their time or anything, because they might be a manager that you would want to put to them if you ever did decide to step away from your business. And that is an option. So like, I mean, like if I'm investing without any investors, say if it's just one project, like say like if I want to purchase in Florida, if I want to purchase somewhere where like my wife and I vacation to frequently, where we're just purchasing a property for ourselves, it might make more sense to just put it with a manager, compared to building out a whole team and a system around it. Again, that's for like places we actually plan on like vacationing too frequently, where we don't have partners involved, where it's not really, yeah, it'll cash flow, but it will like we're not really like expecting to live off that cash flow. It's just to maybe pay the mortgage and maybe cash flow 500 to 1,000 compared to 3 or 4,000. That might make more sense to put a full blown manager behind a project like that.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. I didn't think about it from that perspective, but I was thinking of it from the other end of the spectrum. If you had like a really large portfolio where 75% of a much larger number, makes total sense to have those property managers doing everything.
You have more purchasing power too. If you're coming to a company with 50 projects or 50 properties, you can probably get that number down to 10 to 15%, which would honestly make sense to give it to someone like that. But if you've gotten to a point at 50 projects, like if you've gotten to 50 properties, you probably already have the systems in place where you don't need that person. It's just an extra cost. Because if you're managing 50 properties and you've built or acquired 50 properties, you probably already have those people in place.
Yeah, I didn't think about that either. That makes a lot of sense though. Huh. Okay, so is the goal usually to maximize the number of people that can stay in each dwelling?
Yeah, it's a little bit of both. You don't want them to be like sardines in a can or something. I say 2 to 4 per bedroom. So like 4 would mean like if you're putting 2 sets of bunk beds for like kids, 2 to 4 per bedroom, and then a pull-out couch. And we don't go anything beyond that. Especially when you're putting in septic systems, you got to be careful with how much your septic system is permitted for in terms of bedrooms. Usually in a county, it's about 2 people, no, sorry, 4 people per bedroom per septic. So if you have a 2 bedroom septic system, the maximum people you can have in there is 8. So I wouldn't try to pack people in. A really good guideline to go off of sometimes is like how many people can sit if you have a dining table, how many people can sit at a dining table, and just add 2 people. So it's like if your dining table sleeps 6 people, or sorry, it can seat 6 people, it probably wouldn't go beyond 8 people in that. That's a weird way of saying that, but that's it's about right of what we're used to seeing.
Yeah, it's like a rule of thumb. That makes a lot of sense. In terms of I know you got the well, but from my experience of wells, it can taste like horrible iron or sulfur. So do you always use water softeners in all your
Yeah,
companies?
you could put full that was the lesson we learned with our very first project. Luckily the water is clean in here in Asheville, like we're digging out of wells, but we still put budget to put like a whole home filtration system into the project budget, which will cost anywhere between maybe 2,500 to 5,000, depending on how intricate you want to get with it.
Okay. So I know you mentioned the cost per square foot is around $240 per square foot, but to sleep like 6 to 8 people, how many square feet is that usually? Like 1,000 or?
Yeah, 6 people. So like our A-frame, it's all yeah, how you design the property. So I mean, you want to go with like the more open floor plan. Just makes it feel more spacious. And so like our A-frame's about 900 square foot, and we can get away with doing it's a 2 bedroom, 1 bath, or there's a loft with a queen bed, and then a bedroom, and then a queen pull-out couch. But we've never had any complaints with it being too stuffy, or like we're like cramming people in. Yeah, about 1,000. Like we're rehabbing a project right now, and that's going to be a 2 bedroom, 1 bath. That's going to be able to sleep 6 people, and that's 1,000 square foot.
Okay, so that's kind of the sweet spot right now, what
Yeah,
you're
six
seeing.
people. Yeah, we are developing smaller projects, say like 400 square foot, that can only sleep 2 people or 4 people. I always, with ever projects I like to develop, I like to be able to have room to put at least a queen sleeper sofa in the sitting area. And when I say enough room for it to be able to open, like the whole queen bed to be able to open. I wouldn't develop a cabin just for two people. You can, like, some people rent out our 6-person cabin just for two people. But it's better to plan for more, and then people who come through can, whether it be two people or 6 people, it doesn't really matter to me.
Okay. Yeah, I think it probably depends on the project too. Like I've seen some where they have a lot of these little huts and they're all positioned around the
Right.
lakefront.
That makes more sense to do two people if you have like 20 of those units, which is like 300 square foot, 400 square foot.
Yeah, it's more like
It's
a
a
couple
resort.
and their dog or something.
Yeah, it's a resort. That's what I look at that as, like a resort in the mountains.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. So I know that you had mentioned on your YouTube channel that the goal should be to drive people eventually to booking directly on your website, but you're starting out, you're using Airbnb, VRBO, and other things. So could you just describe that process of like how you're succeeding in getting people to book on your own website? Are you also like doing some paid traffic, any PPC campaigns or anything?
So there are companies. So we're still building out that back end, but I am teaching on it because it's such a powerful strategy. We use a company called StayFi, and I've spoken about this is the company I managed to push to everyone. So StayFi is like a little disc that goes in the back of the your Wi-Fi modem, and it captures emails. Usually get the person's email that's booking through you, but say if you're sleeping, like one of our properties we're purchasing right now can sleep 12 people, you'd only get one email out of that, compared to this where you can get potentially 12 emails. And imagine like you go to a Starbucks, you go to a coffee shop, and you got to input your email to get access to the internet. That's essentially what this is. It protects the host from the guest doing anything illegal on your internet, but you also get their email, where you can remarket to them. We don't do anything crazy. Maybe like we're planning to do like 3 to 4 times a year, like seasonal emails. And it keeps your property top of mind. Now you don't have to build a back end website to be able to take direct bookings. You can just put your Airbnb link in there to push them to your website. But there are companies that are coming out right now that specifically deal in direct booking, short-term rental marketing. And I haven't looked into them, but I've seen them. And that's something very exciting, because it's almost going full circle now, where short-term rentals have been around forever, right? They've been around way before the internet, where it's just where you had to pick up a phone and book something. But Airbnb, VRBO, the online travel agencies, have made it way easier for people to both host and stay in these properties. So it's going full circle now, because now it's like people are seeing, like, I don't like Airbnb being able to control my calendar sometimes, because they will book out days that are like, I had a weekend where they booked out all of it was like a couple of years ago. They booked out, or they blocked off my New Year's weekend, because like there was a lot of parties happening, and Airbnb was getting in trouble for parties, like in the press. So they went and blocked out most of the people's calendars, and I lost out on like $1,000 worth of bookings. And that might not sound like a lot, like $1,000, but if I had 20 properties, that's 20 grand that, like, the Airbnb, that just a company that could just control my property like that. So that was the first time I started thinking about direct bookings. But yeah, I think that's where I think a lot of conversation is happening now, or a lot of resources are getting pushed towards direct bookings, which is just going full circle now with short-term rentals, because it's Airbnb, VRBO made everything popular, and now people are switching over to direct bookings.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the expense itself, it's like 3% cut the Airbnb takes.
3%, but they take about 14% from the guests for service fees. So that can be a part of your marketing there, is saying, hey, we only take a 5 to 8%, whatever number you want to set it at. Even if you say, hey, Airbnb takes 14%, we're going to take 8%, or you don't even got to say it like that, like, don't pay service fees or whatever. And not only are you saving that 3% on your end, you could potentially save that money, or save a certain amount of money for your guests as well, and that can be a part of your marketing.
Yeah. I think that the goal is just to not be as dependent on that other platform too. Just have more control of your business, right?
Yeah, don't build your business on someone else's soil. I'd read that on a real estate book. So
yeah. Yeah, no,
And
for my land flipping business, I rely on the local MLS that I'm trying to list the property in, but also Facebook Marketplace, at least for termers buyers that want to pay monthly. And a lot of times, if you post something, if you make mention an animal or something, the algorithm will flag it and shut you down. And like what last year, I had my marketplace shut down for like 6 months because I wasn't savvy. I'm working with someone now that was able to get it back in like 6 hours, but the 6 months I didn't have marketplace. I was using my wife's marketplace, and it's just really annoying having to be like, oh shit, like that's all the leads I had and everything else. I have to redo all my listings and everything.
right.
And yeah, it's just scary.
Yeah, and I mean that happened also. Like I had a guest completely lie about her experience. I think it's just because she wanted, this has only happened once in the 2.5 years I've managed this specific property, but she had lied about an experience she had at the property just to get her money back. And Airbnb completely took away my superhost status. Airbnb completely like delisted my property for like a couple days until I got that resolved. And it was just like shoot first, ask questions later type thing. And that was very frustrating too. So yeah, no, it's very important to make sure that you're building out your own platform. That now does that mean that you're not? That doesn't mean that you're making the switch in one day. We're like, screw Airbnb, screw VRBO. I'm only doing direct bookings. It's happening over time where you're like, okay, 50% of my bookings now are coming from Airbnb, 50% are coming from direct bookings. It's a slow transition. You can't, I don't believe you can completely make that switch overnight.
Yeah, I mean, you got to start somewhere too. No one's just going to have a book of 5,000 emails that are going to be repeat visitors.
Yeah, and it's beauty because like when you learn about email marketing, when you think about internet marketing or any type of like e-commerce, any type of internet business, the first thing someone will always tell you is build a list, build a list, build a list. And what's interesting about this is like people don't really think about that too much in terms of real estate, whether it be like building a list because it's like a brick and mortar company or a brick and mortar type of business. And such a powerful strategy to build that list. And what's cool about it too is like when I talked about exits in the beginning of this podcast is like you can give that list to someone purchasing the property. They're like, say if we're say if Marriott comes to me one day and will be like, I want to purchase your 50 properties. You can, that can be a part of your price is you're actually selling them a business. You're selling them a client list of, hey, I have these 5,000 emails, and that's gonna make your business worth more.
So it might be presumptuous to assume that everyone's going to be like a repeat guest, but
Right.
just based on the actual data and what you're seeing with your properties, how common is that for someone to be like, yeah, last year I booked a place there. I really want to go back and have that same experience.
I don't necessarily have a number. I see it enough where I recognize it. And I can't really put a number on that. But I also haven't remarketed to these people. These are people who have just come through that have had a good experience with the property without me even nudging them to do it. So I'm assuming that the numbers would be way more if I was actually staying top of mind with most of my guests. And you can do the StayFi also allows you to do SMS messaging, but I'm just sticking to email right now. Just the less fields the guest has to fill, the better. I've never had a complaint about having them have like a guest having to put their email in.
Okay, got it. Oh yeah, and then before we started recording, we were talking about how you kind of hit on it. I'm in Dallas and I'm trying to invest in land over in like Cherokee County across the country. So do you recommend that like for someone's first property that they build something from the ground up, or just do like something local and just do like an Airbnb arbitrage and not even build something?
I mean, it's either or. I like you said, like we were talking about it before. Like I started in arbitrage. It is a phenomenal model. I'm a coach for B&B Formula, who is headed by Brian Page, and that's sort of where I started. That was sort of like the first course mentorship I was a part of, group coaching. And I mean, their whole model is arbitrage, but I'm seeing some people who are coming to me asking me about financing and purchasing these projects. So like maybe they managed a property for 2 years for like someone they were renting the property from, which is arbitrage. And maybe the owner comes to him and be like, hey, do you like they're looking to sell the property. And a lot of the times the person who's managing the property for him is the first person that they're going to sell the property to. So it's a nice segue. They work together. I'm just like all in on the development side and the short-term rental. I don't manage any projects or properties that I am not an owner in right now, just because I just don't have the bandwidth for it.
That makes sense. I mean, still with like the arbitrage model, you're not getting that depreciation tax shield that's going to offset all that income. So I think there's definitely huge advantages.
Depreciation, appreciation. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. That's true. Yeah. Yeah. I think once you have that track record and experience, I would see that makes a lot more sense to focus on.
Right.
Okay. Well, I think that we've hit on most everything I wanted to discuss. This has been just really great. Hopefully it's been eye-opening for other folks listening to it. Do you feel like we missed anything that you wanted to hit on though?
No, it's just what we just talked about right now. It doesn't have to be either or, whether it be like I'm going to start developing, I'm going to start purchasing or arbitrage. It's whatever's going to work in your market. If you that's why I created the YouTube channel, is because there weren't really too many resources out there that talk about the day-to-day stuff that you have to do for the development. So it's obviously the barrier to entry is going to be higher. It's going to be harder for the development piece of it, but I mean, a lot of people are going that route just because they can't find good deals right now.
Okay, got it. I forgot to. I know I asked it before, but I don't know if you directly answered it. But whenever you're doing your own builds, you do have to do the entitlement process as well.
In terms of entitlement, in terms of,
I don't know, just saying like, hey, I'm going to build this thing, and do you approve it? So maybe I just don't understand this.
Exactly. Yeah. So every county, city is going to be different, and some cities, every single short-term rental, you have to have a permit. Like you have to have, for the one property, you have to have one permit. Now, there are people out there, like Asheville doesn't allow short-term rentals, but if you look at the data through airdna.co, there are thousands of short-term rentals in Asheville. It's just the fact that I take investor money on, and I don't want to risk getting slapped if for some reason the neighbors complain or whatever. But in my county, if you can have two properties right next to each other without a permit at all, it's just, you can just build them just like that. So it's going to be different. I would push people to sort of call their planning department or ask for, like, I mean, every city and county has like their zoning stuff on the internet. So just, I mean, look that up and see how they treat short-term rentals. And then on top of that, just making sure that you're not purchasing in a subdivision with an HOA. If I see HOA, I tend to push away from that, because HOA means that the whole neighborhood can control what happens to a property in that area.
Okay. Yeah, I'm actually working on a deal right now where there's two different gates to access the property, and I know there's two different subdivisions, and for the one I'm trying to get access through, the subdivision, I think it's not even, and the HOA is not enforced anymore, but
it's just a road maintenance agreement then. Yeah, it would just be like something to maintain the road. Some places like that area, I wouldn't be surprised if there's HOA specifically designed to protect short-term rentals. Because I mean, you could do that too, where like a developer came through and said this community is going to be it's going to be short-term rental friendly, and I'm going to put it in the HOA stuff to protect short-term rentals. So it goes two ways.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. Yeah. Well, I don't want to keep you too much longer. I think this has been really helpful. I'll, like I said, put your YouTube channel link in the show notes. Is there any other way that you want to tell people to get in touch with you if they wanted to speak with you?
Yeah. My direct email is alex@sargoninvestments.com. They can find me on LinkedIn too. It's just Alex Jarbo. The YouTube channel is just a little logo of a blue tree. That's how they can find it. I'm pretty sure it's ranking pretty well if you just search it in YouTube. But yeah, Sargon Investments is our website as well. We're putting together a course with like some mentoring or something that's probably going to push out sometime next or later this year. And then our investing portal's on there as well. If people are not looking to do it themselves, they can invest directly with us too. And our little invest now button. They go through there and then they'll just schedule a call directly with me, and 15-30 minutes. We'll talk about their goals and everything.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, Sargon Investments, SARGON investments.com.
Yeah, investments with an S.com.
Right. All right,
Yep.
perfect. Well, thanks a lot.
Awesome. Thanks, Mason.
All right, that's another episode of Scalable Real Estate Investing. Thank you for tuning in. Please be sure to leave a review and subscribe on whatever channel you're using to listen or watch these episodes. And also be sure to go to scalablerealestateinvesting.com, scroll to the bottom, and fill out the form to sign up for our email. And you could also reach me directly at mason@scalablerealestateinvesting.com. That's MASON at scalablerealestateinvesting.com. If you'd like to get in touch with me to either partner on deals or even be considered to do your own episode on this podcast. Thanks again, and have a great day.